Chapter 89 to 90. As far as the eyes could see, there was sand. This place was kilometers away from the residential area. Sir Crocodile was looking ahead of him. Liger had finally arrived. He reconsidered if he should create a pit of quicksand under him, but he found it too easy, so he suppressed himself from finishing him off too early. Even though he was a little more cautious than his anime counterpart due to Amon's influence, his bad habit of playing with his enemies still stands. Oh, you worthless Vice Admiral. You fell for my trap. You entered my domain. Crocodile crackled up. Kahaha. Kikik. Unexpectedly for Crocodile, Liger also laughed. He knew what Crocodile was pointing towards, but there was no way he would lose. Crocodile, do you know what my devil fruit is? Slowly, Liger's body was changing. Strange tiger-like marks were forming in his body, while blonde fur was covering his entire self. Keka. It's a zoan, an ancient zoan to be specific. He grinned as Crocodile frowned. Thousands of years ago, there used to exist a certain animal. That was a mutant race, a mixture of lion and tiger. Using its extraordinary power, it gained its name, Liger. Ironically, my dead parents chose this certain name for me, and I also got this certain fruit. His grin widened as he spread his arms in the air. Ancient zoan. Cat fruit. Model. Liger. From the sky, Amon chuckled hearing him. His guess was correct. Although word of his exact devil fruit name never got out, he knew for a fact that it should be something like this. After all, he had seen it in person before. But an ancient zoan? Talk about a pleasant surprise. Liger's body grew in size and got completely covered in golden fur with markings similar to a tiger all around his body. However, he also had a lion-like head. In this form, he looked dangerous and intimidating. He obviously had the power to back that look as well. His pupils were now red, glaring at Crocodile. Crocodile didn't think much. The man was dangerous. He raised his right hand in the air and swung the arm down aggressively. Desert sword. Crocodile formed his right hand into a loose blade of fast-moving sand and then stabbed it into the ground, extending it along the ground like a torpedo, splitting anything in its path, including the very ground itself. However, Liger had already vanished from his spot. He suddenly appeared from behind Crocodile, with his hand forming a punch. Keck. You aren't half bad, huh? Before Crocodile could fully turn around, Liger's punch hit him in the face. Bam. A crocodile tried to transform into sand, but the punch hit him too hard. He flew a few meters away from the spot, but he didn't hit the ground. He transformed into sand midair and became one with the desert itself. Liger stood there in silence, looking around him. The wind of the desert caressed his fur while the heat made him sweat a little. This was a bad atmosphere for an animal that never touched the desert, resulting in a huge disadvantage by the fur covering his body. Did that coward run away after one hit? His question was answered the next second as a hand made of sand came out of the ground and grabbed his leg. He grinned and stepped on it with his other leg, but more hands came out of the ground and subdued him. In a few seconds, hands were wrapping his whole body and pulling him underground. Liger couldn't move at all. Kahaha, show yourself, coward. He was quite fascinated by how Crocodile did things. Crocodile took a big lesson from the time he got threatened by Amon with frickin' water bottles. He won't let himself be humiliated like that ever again. Soon after, in front of Liger's eyes, a sand sculpture of a human came out of the ground and soon took the form of Crocodile, who had a cigar in his mouth. Look at your worthless face. Did you think beating me in a desert is possible? Crocodile looked down at him, who looked back with a grin. Oh, you think some hands made of sand can keep me down? Suddenly, his 9-foot body started to grow large and soon took the form of a 25 feet tall giant humanoid Liger. Have you ever seen an awakened devil fruit? You didn't, right? So here, you can take pride in being able to see it now. He monologued while freeing himself from the sand hands. Crocodile growled seeing this. It seemed he would have to get serious as well. With his hands preparing to grab Liger's giant neck, Crocodile jumped forward. But that was the wrong move. Yawn, this is boring. Too boring. Although it was quite a surprise that Liger had already awakened his fruit and even had such a transformation up his sleeves, he couldn't outmatch the cautious Crocodile. Though that doesn't mean Crocodile was on the winning side either. The current match was impossible to determine, for most people at least. Amon kept watching the match while floating on his stomach, around 3,000 meters up in the air. He could still see everything clearly. Amon made some preparations and took some pictures of the match. This can be enough to prove that they died while fighting each other. At first, he wanted to take things slowly and finish Crocodile in a way that won't let the Marines know about it. Although doing things such hideously didn't appeal to Amon, he had to be careful since he would be absent from the earth for a while. First, he wanted to use Liger to expose everything about Crocodile. Then, when he would have been in the run, Amon would have claimed his head. However, this wasn't half bad either. This was a through golden opportunity. Eating ice cream that he brought from the sky a minute ago, Amon kept looking at the scene. Suddenly, Amon's sword flinched lightly as he patted it lightly. Don't act like you have a life. I will get paranoid. Chuckling to himself, Amon looked back at the first month of him with the sword. At first, the sword was a disobedient piece of shit. It took him 375 hours of Conqueror's hockey injections into that shit to tame it. Even now, it's an aggressive and stubborn sword just like its other two family members. Oh, it's getting interesting. Amon paid more attention to the fight down there. Hours later, Amon was walking through the desert with a packet of fries in his hand. After walking like that for a few more minutes, Amon finally reached a sandy hill which he climbed atop. He looked down at the two people barely keeping up their fight. Crocodile was barely forming his sand attacks, while Liger was on the verge of falling to his knees. His body had become very skinny and dry, indicating him falling victim to Crocodile's moisture-draining ability. The fight was interesting since, somehow, Crocodile learned how to use armament as well. Crocodile wasn't weak at all this time around, and since he was less arrogant than before, he at least reached this point. In fact, if he was not arrogant at all, he might even have won against that monster. Amon sipped some juice which he spilled out because the heat ruined the taste. Crocodile and Liger were still on their feet. Amon grinned. It was time to hunt. Hey boys. Both Crocodile and Liger looked back. Hey boys. What? Lucifer? Both of them had the same reaction seeing the black-haired, red-eyed devil looking at them with a grin while his hair was fluttering in the air. It's been a while, both of you. Although their initial reaction was indeed that of being surprised, currently they were plotting in their head. Great, I'm his partner. He will take my side. Great, from what I know they are enemies. He will take my side. Unfortunately for both of them, they will be getting one big surprise. Amon grinned and took out his sword. He would have never thought of carrying a sword all the time like this before. Things changed after he got this piece of art. This was one of Tenguiyama Hitetsu's creations. Meanwhile, Robin was in her room sitting in her chair, staring at the ceiling with hollow eyes. I failed again. I really am a devil. Just for some drink. I hurt him. Her tears were spilling, even though she's been crying for hours now. A thought came to her mind. Should I commit suicide? She instantly shook her head. She glanced at the hidden bottle of whiskey around the room. No, I will never drink in my life again. She fell on the bed face first and cried while hugging her pillow. I won't rebel ever again. Please come back. There are 3 Katetsu blades in this world. All of them are curse swords. Katetsu 3, Sandai Katetsu, one of the grade blades. The sword Zoro had in canon. In this timeline, Riki is using it. This one was made by Tenguiyama Hitetsu. Katetsu 2, Nidai Katetsu, one of the 21 great grade blades. This sword resides in Wano. Luffy used it for a while in canon. This one was made by Tenguiyama Hitetsu's ancestor, Kotetsu. There is also Kotetsu I. This was made by Kotetsu's ancestor. Amon walked above the sandhill in the desert and looked down. He teleported from his spot for a second and returned with a cold drink. Duck, 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 duck. Gah. He gulped the whole bottle and wiped his lips. Licking his lips, Amon lightly tossed a bottle up in the air. It reached around a kilometer up in the sky. Amon took a deep breath. Hello, boys. Both of the fighters looked back instantly. They were surprised looking at the unexpected guest. Amon was wearing a black jacket and had one of the Katetsu blades, one of the 12 legendary grade blades, Shodai Katetsu in his waist. Lucifer? It took them a few seconds, but they finally recognized him. Both of them were in a daze. Meanwhile, the bottle Amon threw slowly fell from the sky. When it was in front of Amon's face, he entered lightning speed and lightly tapped the bottle forward, aiming at Crocodile's head. Bravum! It broke the sound barrier and hit Crocodile right at his head. Bam! A headshot. Luckily, this was just a test, and Amon didn't infuse Haki in the bottle, which had already vaporized after moving at that speed. However, Crocodile was nowhere to be seen. He merged with the desert already. Impossible. Was that electricity? Liger was taken off guard. He didn't know Lucifer had a devil fruit. But soon he realized. Great. Yes, join me. Liger was instantly overcome with happiness. It didn't matter where his power came from. This was his match if Amon helped. Besides, he did attack Croc just now. Amon smiled sweetly at him and unsheathed his sword as he flowed electricity through his body. While Liger was confused, Amon lightly played with his sword and then made a serious face. Behold, Amon took a stance with his sword and vanished from his spot the next second, appearing a few meters ahead of the Liger. Lightning sword style. Like the typical swordsman, Amon slowly put his sword back to its sheath as it made a click sound. Unlimited slash. Slash. Cook. Suddenly, a large cut wound appeared on Liger's body as he lightly fell on his back. And no way. Crocodile formed behind Amon as sand and tried to take him by surprise. He wasn't sure why he suddenly attacked both Liger and himself, but he knew Amon wasn't on his side. He must die.
Die.
He tried to grab Amon by his neck so that he could suck him dry, but Amon vanished with a bolt of lightning. He appeared 70 meters away from Crocodile. Wow, so fast. He mocked Crocodile as he glared at him. Suddenly, his eyes twitched. He made a plan. I will try the underground hand attack on him. Crocodile pulled back his killing intent and then calmly polished his hook. What's the meaning of this, Lucifer? Both of us were having a small spar. Why are you interfering? Amon looked at him with a deadpan face. Chuckling, he patted his sheathed sword. Bro, I know what's happening here. I'm just trying to kill you both. Amon said with a face screaming, Bruh? Crocodile frowned. Amon continued. As for why I'm not cutting you with my lovely sword, it's because I'm being careful. After the Marines find the two of your bodies, I need them to believe no third party was involved in your death. You have some slash attacks using your devil fruit, so even if Liger died with a cut wound, nobody would suspect. But I can't kill you with a sword, unfortunately. So, I need to fight you hand to hand. Be grateful. Crocodile glared at Amon. You think you can live after saying all this? You should have kept your mouth shut. Suddenly, tens of hands made of sand came out of the ground and started to pull Amon underground slowly. Amon snickered. I mean, a dead man can't talk, so who cares if you know some wise words? Surprising Crocodile, Amon vanished from his spot and appeared above Crocodile, his eyes cold. He flowed electricity through his leg, preparing a kick. Grinning, he launched his leg forward. Thunder Dragon kick. A lightning dragon formed around Amon's leg like a barrier as he kicked Crocodile right in the face, making him fly a few meters away, while puking blood. Amon dropped to the ground and looked at the scene with curiosity. So your body didn't turn into glass? Amon was curious, but the other two were not. Things were moving too fast for them. Liger was injured badly, while Crocodile wasn't getting a chance to think at all. They both had one question. Does he really plan to kill both of us?
Why?
Ignoring their unnecessary thoughts he was sensing, Amon raised his finger towards the sky. He needs to test the theory of Crocodile's body. 250 million. L. Thor. Crack, rumble. Beam. A giant beam of lightning dropped from the sky right at Crocodile's body. AAA, AA. Even though Amon wasn't strong enough to mix hockey with that big of a beam, it still hurt Crocodile because of its sheer power. As seconds passed, Amon stopped the attack as he stared at the scene ahead. At the place where L. Thor hit, a circular hole was created. The hole wasn't that deep, but rather it was crystallized. Inside the crystallized hole, a glass-sculptured crocodile stood still. Oh, how interesting. Crocodile had become a human sculpture made of glass. It was a normal phenomenon for sand to turn into glass in heat. Yes, even in Amon's previous world there were cases of lightning strikes turning sand into glass.
This was a case similar to that.
Amon was suddenly hit with a concern. Wait, is he dead? He thought about his possible loss for a second. He realized there was no loss. How pitiful. Oh, wow. Suddenly, Amon's concerns vanished in thin air as he raised the corner of his lips. He looked at the scene ahead of him. The glass sculpture moved slightly as a few cracks appeared on its body. Crocodile, still with a glass outer skeleton, gasped a big breath.
Kuh.
What was that? While he glared at Amon, he realized something suddenly. His body wasn't the same as before. He quickly inspected his body for a second as a grin appeared on his face. Gah! He smiled maniacally. My body is crystal now. This way my biggest weakness won't affect me at all. Kahaha! Crocodile had a madman-like look plastered on his face, but in seconds, more cracks formed around the glass covering his body as it started to fall, and his body returned to normal. Huh? Puffed ha. Amon laughed seeing him react this way. So, 9 seconds, huh? I guess you'll be quite powerful if I can make that effect permanent, Just a few more million volts. While Crocodile questioned who is she, he noticed something. As he smirked internally, Amon rubbed his chin. It was quite fascinating how Crocodile survived at 250 million volts L-Thor, but it matters not. I recall the times Liger used Shurgon, so it won't be suspicious if Croc died by that technique. It was then when Liger had gotten up and was slowly coming at Amon's back. He jumped forward and caught Amon by surprise. Caught you, bastard. Liger laughed. Crocodile, we are both injured and weak right now. I don't think this bastard is on any of our sides, so why not finish him first? Let's not fight among ourselves for now, alright? Amon chuckled lightly in his grasp. Man, you are strong. You survived my slash. But you also are dumb. Liger tightened his grip. I'm surprised how you were able to cut me. My skin is as hard as iron while I'm transformed. Amon laughed. Well, it's a special sword for nothing. Saying this, Amon covered the back of his head with hockey and smacked his head on Liger's nose. Cook. Liger covered his nose with his hand as Amon was out of his grasp. Amon turned around to face him as he placed his hand in the hilt of his sword. Liger's eyes became wide, but before Amon could harm him, Crocodile attacked from behind. He crossed his arms and slashed the air. Sand sword. Crocodile's hands turned into a whip-like sand sword as it went close to Amon. However, instead of hitting him, the attack phased through. Even though Crocodile did use hockey in his attack, he was still hurt. It was quite strange to Crocodile as he was questioning if this was an innate ability of Amon or not. In reality, Amon just shook his body in the way flash phases through objects, so even the hockey-imbued slash phrased through him. Crocodile growled seeing this. Meanwhile, Amon pulled out his sword and slashed at Liger again. This time a large cut was formed in his torso. He wasn't dead yet though. Amon then looked at Crocodile. Now it was his turn. He put back his sword and raised a finger towards his heart. He imbued electricity and hockey and his finger silently chanted, "Shergon." He then moved fast towards Crocodile. His finger punctured the off-guard Crocodile's chest with ease. Crocodile widened his eyes looking at Amon as the latter looked back at him coldly. Next moment, Crocodile lightly fell back on his back and Amon shifted his gaze to the half-dead Liger. He walked towards him. Looking at his face, Amon grinned. "How does it feel to be at death's door?" "Keka, it certainly isn't a pleasant feeling." "Ha ha ha, I know right?" Amon took out his sword. In that small exchange of words with Liger, he confirmed a few things using his observation and experience. He didn't notify the HQ about Crocodile or me. Good. Feeling a little pleased, Amon lightly cut Liger in half, as if his body was tofu. Liger kept looking at him with strange emotions. Arg, who would have thought I would die like this? Hey. Blood burst out of Liger's mouth. Looking at his corpse for a split second, Amon vanished from his spot and returned with some papers in his hands. He went closer to Liger's dead body and placed the papers in his hand. He will also prepare to send a copy of these papers to the HQ in Liger's name. They will just assume Liger saw his death coming, so he sent the papers beforehand. Everything is settled now. I just need to... Wait. Croc is still alive. Amon abruptly looked back where Croc was lying, pretending to be dead. Puffed. Ha ha ha, poor guy. He even fooled me since he can hide his presence in this desert. While Crocodile kept pretending, Amon pointed his finger at his head from far. Shergon. Finger bullet. Amon's finger left his body while leaving a trail of lightning and penetrated Crocodile's head like butter. Crocodile died in silence. He had a dream. Even if he couldn't become the Pirate King, he at least wanted to die like him, but he died silently in an unknown location, under nobody's look of admiration. This was a shameful death to him. It almost felt surreal, but he died. The battle ended in 4:59 seconds. Thor. Is it a good thing I feel nothing after taking 2 lives? Amon tilted his head. Meh, who cares? He then vanished again, this time returning with a fruit basket. The sun was setting far in the sky. Amon stood in the lonely desert alone. Amon was standing in the dark desert with 2 strange-looking fruits in his hands. Currently, it was raining here. The royal family was using the cloud dials properly. Currently, Amon was perplexed. Who do I give the ancient Zoan to? This was a powerful fruit indeed, so Amon couldn't decide. He decided to hold on to it for now. Soon, he vanished after lightning crackled in the sky. Ketetu-I, a sword that was never shown in canon and was only mentioned briefly. The strongest among the Ketetsu family. Ketetsu-I, Shodai Ketetsu, one of the 12 supreme grade blades. Although in canon nobody had it, this time around Amon owns it. After visiting Noah once, Amon sensed something interesting deep inside it. It was mostly because of his ability to sense electrical fields, partially because he had used the Ketetsu 3 for a while before. He recognized the aura, so he again returned to Noah with Raki's sword. Confirming his suspicion, Amon picked up the strongest cursed sword in history without hesitation. This was the only reason he was taking swordsmanship training from Sumi. Amon also discovered Sumi can use armament without knowing it herself. He now possessed one of the 12 supreme grade swords in his vault. Also 2 of the 3 Ketetsu blades as well. Why was there such a sword in Noah? That was a question he had. Who used this sword before? This was another. Was it only luck which led me to find this piece of art? It was another question, however. The biggest question was, he wondered if there would be something special if he collected all of them.